So, for my past 7 years of playing Minecraft, can you believe it? That time has flown by. I have been focusing on pretty much nothing but piston doors. And I'm going to be completely flat out and honest with you and saying, well, they're getting a bit boring. I don't really know what to do with piston doors anymore. I feel like I've done a lot of the stuff which, well, I've wanted to do. So, what I've been doing these past few weeks is branching out and learning some new niches of technical Minecraft Bedrock Edition. I started with mob farming and villager tech, building a super flat iron farm, but I've now moved on to computational redstone and logical redstone. Thanks to a YouTuber by the name of Matt Batwings, who some of you have probably heard of already for his incredible builds using only Redstone. He built a whole graphing calculator using Redstone. He built, well, several mini games like 2048 and Flappy Bird and Tetris and chess, and oh my goodness, it's so crazy. He's such a crazy redstoner. I will link his channel in the description. He's been such a massive inspiration for my technical Minecraft turnaround these past few weeks. In my exploration, looking around various different computational things that people have built, I came across one by a certain crafty masterman who made the quote fastest stopwatch in Minecraft Java Edition. It measures right the way down to the game tick, and yeah, it's super crazy to watch. And it inspired me to go away and make my own fast stopwatch in Bedrock Edition, which is what you can see in front of me. Before I get into the explanation of how it works, or even, I guess, a look around the circuitry, because it's a bit daunting, I'll show you this thing in action. So if we flick this lever on, we'll be able to see that it will start counting up in seconds. And you can see, well, this digit here looks like it's doing some really funny things. It looks like it's blinking on and off. It hasn't really got much of a purpose. But what's happening here is it's actually measuring down to the 0.1 second. And because lamps have, well, internal delay on the deactivation, well, the whole clock is way too fast for these lamps to be able to display the digit, so it just kind of looks like it's having a funny 5 minutes. But I promise you, if I go ahead and deactivate this, then you'll be able to see, yeah, we have a reading of 36.3 seconds, which is exactly how long we flicked this lever on for. And if I just activate this a little bit longer, then you'll be able to see that when this reaches 10, it carries over to the following digit. I'm just going to sit here a bit longer and you'll be able to see it will carry over to the minutes section as well. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then there we go. You can see it ripples along and it adds 1 to this right here. And the same thing will happen when this gets to 10 minutes, then it's going to add 1 to here, and when it gets to 60 minutes, it's going to add 1 to here. So this whole stopwatch can hold a total of 99 hours, 59 minutes, and 59.9 seconds. I also integrated a clear system into this stopwatch because, well, if it would just, you know, count up and could never stop counting up, then it would be a little bit counterintuitive. So if you press this button, then you'll be able to see that it resets all of the digits to 0, and I cannot stop watching this thing work. Just when it ripples along and changes all of them to 0, it's so satisfying, and it just makes my heart rise in my chest, and it's such a nice feeling. Really, because it was such a headache to implement a system that does that, and I will explain why it was such a headache a bit later on. But yeah, I think we're ready to take a look at the redstone. Now, don't scream, okay? It might take your breath away a little bit. But here it is. This is the redstone that makes it work. Now, I hate to be one of those redstone guys on YouTube that says, oh, it's really quite simple. And actually, it's really not. But honestly, if you split this down into its component segments, literally, in this case, because it's a 7-segment display, but its component circuits, then it's quite easy to understand, I like to say. So yeah, this, upon first glance, this does just look like a massive intertwining mess of redstone dust and various different colours of concrete. But there's a very, very good and very specific reason to each of these circuits and why I did them the way I did. So what I've done is I've extracted a digit over here, like this. So this is, I guess, everything that makes up one particular digit. And I've also split that digit up into two sections. So let me start with this blue circuit right here, the light blue, I guess. So these blue lines here just correspond to each of the segments in the 7-segment display. So we've got one on top, we've got one on this side, one on this side, one in the middle, one on this side, one on this side, and one at the bottom, for a total of 7, obviously. Now, each of these green lines are actually what controls which digit shows up upon which signal. So if I just flick this lever on, this particular one corresponds to the number 0. So what's going to happen is it's going to activate all of these 3 at the bottom here, and it's also going to activate the ones on the sides like this, and it's also going to activate the one on the top, and you can see that makes 0. So let's just also pick another digit at random. Let's pick this one right here, and that shows 3. So if we follow this up and round, then you can see this one in the middle activates, this one on the right hand side activates, the same on this this one as well, the middle one, and then the one on the right hand side, and then also the one on the top, to create 3. And this obviously happens with every single digit. They're all coded to display, you know, whatever digit is assigned to that particular lever. Now we move on to arguably the most interesting bit of the whole digit mechanism, and this is the redstone clock. Now, normally in, well, I guess conventional 7-segment display counters or stopwatches or things like that, then quite often you'll use piston feed tapes as a way of encoding certain digits. But the problem with piston feed tapes, because we are measuring the decimal point, pistons can't keep up. They're way too slow. We need to do something different. So what I've used, and this is not an original concept, this has been used, well, for years to do identical things. We take advantage of repeater locking. Repeater locking is actually a super underrated feature that I don't see a lot of people using, but for computational logic it really is the saving grace of a lot of contraptions. So what happens here is, you can see currently there's a repeater that is activated here, and when we unlock all these repeaters, then the signal is just going to run around the clock, I guess, and each of these repeater outputs here correspond to each of these encoded digits, which is how we're able to make it count up to, well, 9, I guess. Now, the moment we activate this lever again, then it activates this pink circuit, which locks all of these repeaters in place. It doesn't matter if they're deactivated or activated, it's going to freeze them in place, pause the clock. So in this case, we got a repeater powered here, which I think, what does that correspond to? The number 2. So in that case, our digit would have stopped at 2. This is really, really helpful. So this does a bunch of different things. We can also give it a pulse, which is how I managed to carry digits over to the following, I guess, place. So you can see this orange circuit right here just detects when the clock reaches 0 and sends a quick pulse through here, deactivating this pink circuit very, very quickly, advancing the next digit by 1. But in the decimals place, the pink circuit is just left completely unlocked for as long as the system is activated to allow it to run around at max speed or whatever. The most interesting circuit in this whole thing, and the one that caused me the most amount of headaches by a long shot, is this magenta, purple and green setup here. So this is the clearing mechanism. Now what this does is it unpowers this purple circuit, but powers this repeater right here, which corresponds to the number 9. What this means is that we're able to drain the whole clock of any signal that it may have. So if we use this this state as an example, then this repeater is activated. So if you imagine that this repeater is locked the whole time and then everything else is unlocked, then this signal will travel all the way around here. It will travel to this redstone dust. It can't activate this repeater, which would otherwise carry it all the way back around again, so it just runs out. So we empty the clock of any signal that it may have. This is super convenient because it means we have full control over where the where the system resets, which is what this this monostable circuit does here. It just sends a quick pulse to this repeater on the falling edge, and then 0.1 seconds later this pink circuit locks again. So what happens then is it doesn't matter where the signal is in this clock, it is always going to reset right back to 0. So what I'm actually going to do to show you that in action is activate this lag machine and also turn up the random tick speed to 4096. So this game is going to have a whole load of lag going on. It's going to be really slow. So when I activate this, you'll be able to see that this signal is running around really slowly, and if I just stop it there, for example, okay, we actually got the same repeater as we did last time, which is a massive coincidence. But anyway, if I activate this, then what you'll see is this repeater stays active. All of the others unlock. You see that dust activated, and then ran out very quickly. And you may have been able to see in my periphery that this redstone line activated very briefly, sending a signal into here. That's not good enough for me. I want to show you that in action. Alright, so when I activate this clearing system, then it's going to do everything that I just mentioned, and also, did you see that? It's really fast. It sends a pulse through here and it traps it in this repeater, which corresponds to 0 right there. You can see that displays 0. Now this would work fine. This is a flawless system. It's, there's very little that I could ask for above this, but I had to deal with a specific edge case, which was, well, repeater number 9 activating. Okay, so here it is. So you can see what happens here is, well, if you imagine that this repeater locks, everything else unlocks, allowing theoretically whatever signal was here to travel all the way around, then, well, it's going to do exactly the opposite to what I want it to do. It's not going to drain, it's going to flood, because all of these repeaters are going to be unlocked. They're going to receive a power from this repeater, and it's going to go all the way around and flood the whole thing with one big I guess circular signal, which is a massive pain in the backside to get rid of. But what I came up with was something which I'm really pleased with, which is just this green circuit down here. So what happens is, when it detects this repeater being powered, it's going to unlock this comparator, which is going to activate this little circuit here before the purple circuit. And what this green circuit does, it just sends one quick pulse through this pink circuit, allowing the 9 to progress round to a 0, and then do the draining as it would normally, which works 100% of the time. So again, I'm going to turn on the lag machine, and you will be able to see that in action. So let's just flick this on. So you'll be able to see that it receives a pulse, it travels round to 0, and then it does the draining as it would. So you see, this dust runs out, and then also it sends a pulse back round here and resets back round to 0. Now, I might receive some questions about, why didn't you just disable this system so that you just pulse it once, it travels back round to here and stops. That's the whole clearing setup done, dusted, whoa, done. But the problem is that, well, it's going to add a whole bunch of extra logic, which is completely unnecessary. If there's anything I've learned from, piston doors, if you can reuse circuitry to do two different things at the same time, then go ahead. It makes your life much easier. There is zero drawback to letting it drain a second time. So I may as well just keep that there rather than adding some, an extra comparator circuit or whatever. There is absolutely zero need to do that. So that's how the whole clearing mechanism works. And I have to say, yeah, I got very, very stressed out with how little it was playing to what I wanted it to do. If we go ahead and look at the whole stopwatch in its entirety, then you can see, yeah, we've just got loads of repeating instances of the same purple and green circuits over and over and over again. Something you might have noticed in the little, I guess, demonstration I did is that it is fast. Okay, it is really fast, clearing all of the digits, just rippling all the way down. And the reason why is because of, again, a very specific edge case which I had to take advantage of. Or not take advantage of, entirely the opposite, take care of, I guess. Which is, well, this carry system here is designed to increment the following digit by 1 whenever the previous digit goes to 0. Which means when we were to clear this digit to a 0, it's going to add to the next one. Which means we have to, wait a whole bunch and then reset it once it's done its whole thing. Or alternatively, I could just add this very simple little line here to just cancel whatever signal's coming into the back of this comparator here, only when the whole system is clearing, meaning, well, the carrying is completely disabled during that process, which allows us to have only 0.1 seconds of delay between each digit in its clearing mechanism. The final thing I wanted to mention is actually two things which you probably hadn't noticed. First of all is this repeater right here, and second of all is this repeater and this comparator. And what these well, they're not really circuits, are they? Let's be honest. What these components deal with is making sure that you can't run the stopwatch and clear at the same time. So this one controls the resetting of this RS NOR latch. So I decided that I wanted to put the clear system on an RS NOR latch. The reason being, there's no reason to clear it multiple times in a row. That's just slow and unnecessary. So I added this RS NOR latch system, which only resets when this system deactivates. So if I just toggle this clock on, then what you're going to see is this repeater activates, and it's going to permanently, power this dust until we turn that lever off. Which means it doesn't matter how many times I click this button, because this torch is depowered, it's not going to change to its second state. Yeah, you can't clear it when it's running, because that would cause a whole bunch of issues. But also, you can't run it while it's clearing. And that's what this is for. This repeater here just cancels whatever signal is going through the activation circuit. And by the way, this is a little system that activates for exactly 1 second. And before I get comments saying, why didn't you just use a stone button input? It's a much easier way of making a second long pulse. But the problem with that, and I did consider it, trust me, there seems to be a little bit of weirdness going on with stone buttons. I put a stone button here in the input, expecting to get a reliable output of exactly 1.0 every single time, but occasionally it gave 0.9, which I think is down to Bedrock's strange C and P tick system, which is an explanation for another video potentially. So I didn't want to have to rely on the pulse length of buttons because I feared it would be way too unreliable. Something you might have noticed with me flying around here is that this uses a really, really limited selection of components. And this was the main challenge of this. For whatever reason, inexplicably, it's just one of those things. I decided that I didn't want to use a single piston in this, and I didn't want to use a single observer. I wanted to stick to dust, torches, repeaters, and comparators only, and I did that. The reason why is really because, well, I wanted to get more fluent with using particular components in a logic-based situation like this one. but also it adds a huge amount of backwards compatibility. So if you build this stopwatch in earlier versions of Bedrock Edition, then it will still work as long as you have, well, those components. So I did actually have a look through the history of these components, and I may be wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can go right from Pocket Edition 0.14.0 with the stopwatch and it will still work, which is, years ago. That's so crazy to say. Unfortunately, this doesn't work in Java Edition because of the fact that if you one tick pulse a torch, it won't actually deactivate. But yeah, I did test it earlier on. I converted this whole world over to Java Edition using the recent tool that Mojang came out with called Chunker, which again I'll link in the description below. Excellent tool, by the way, thoroughly recommend it. And yeah, I hadn't had great results. It doesn't work on Java. It doesn't even start. So, well, I guess that's a pretty telltale sign that it doesn't work in Java Edition. If you flick the lever and absolutely nothing happens. Anyway, ladies and gents, I don't think there is much else I wanted to cover in this video. I really hope you enjoyed the slightly different slightly different video to normal. I do think that I'm going to spend a lot more time learning the inner workings of various different Bedrock Edition technical niches, because I'm going to be honest, I've been doing piston doors for 7 years. They're getting a bit dull and boring. I've got to a point where I don't really know what to do with them anymore. That isn't to say that I don't find them fascinating, of course not. I do still keep up with what's going on there, but I am just, I don't know, I'm just experimenting a bit more. I'm branching out, which is always a good thing to do. Whatever whatever the situation, expect to see a lot more pretty outlandish stuff from me in the not too distant future. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. I really hope you learned something. I really hope my explanation was worth it and you learned something because, well, I'm going to be honest, explaining computational redstone to someone who doesn't really understand is a bit like trying to teach a cat to play chess. So, well, I hope you got something out of this video anyway. Goodbye!